Welcome to Amazon Legends, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became power sellers, also providers specializing in helping sellers, aggregators that acquire sellers, and former Amazonians will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here is your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. My next guest today started on Amazon in 2003 selling basketball hoops and eventually sold that company in 2020. That's a 17-year run. That's quite a long run. So it does say something about stamina, I guess, but both mental, emotional, intellectual, which is what this podcast is about. And he's also the author of Amazon Jungle Book. And after consulting a little, had to start his agency due to popular demand, because that's what happens when you become successful. People start picking your brains, and then before you know it, you find yourself starting another business.
That's right.
And today he's the founder and CEO of 7 Avenue Media, which is a full-service agency for Amazon and Walmart. And when he's not working, he likes fly fishing and snowboarding, and with 13 and 10-year-old girls. So welcome to the show, Jason Boyce.
Thank you, Nick. Just one quick fix. It's Avenue 7 Media. So it starts with the A. But thank you for that very kind introduction. Yeah, I'm one of the old guys, Nick. And, why would somebody, here's the real question, Nick. Why would somebody spend 17 years as an Amazon seller? That is not an easy thing to do. Like, I'm an ex-Marine too. And my standard joke is like, what's the difference between being a big Amazon seller and an ex-Marine? Is the Marines was easier. It's like, it's not easy to do that.
First of all, thank you for your service. I have great respect for all the military members, mainly because of the kind of determination you guys have when you want to go after something. So, I mean, there is no stopping. And I've heard this great phrase called adapt and overcome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Marine Corps, it's improvise, adapt, overcome. And it's just, whatever's thrown at you, you have to go into this mindset that there is a solution for it. And you never give up. You just never, ever, ever give up.
And that is ultimately what brings you the solution anyway, right?
That's right.
Because if you go in thinking, oh my God, this is never going to happen, and it's not going to happen. It's the mindset that drives everything.
I was going to say, Nick, I do have 2 daughters. Thanks for mentioning them. I call them my warrior daughters. They've been in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since they were 2.5 and 4, respectively. And I had such a proud moment this week. I was watching my daughter on the mat, and she tried one thing, it didn't work. She tried another, she tried a Kimura, it didn't work. She tried an armbar, it didn't work. And then ultimately she got a triangle choke. So you try one thing, it doesn't work. Don't panic. You stay calm. You get comfortable with not having it work, and then you move on to the next thing, and you move on to the next thing. And that's just a good life lesson. Whether you're in business as an entrepreneur, whether you work for a big company or whatever, it's just this can-do attitude makes a big difference in life. And I know this. You live it. You model it, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I try. You know how it is. We are human beings. We have emotions. So as much as we try to control them, there is no guarantee. It's every day is a new day, and you have to put your best foot forward and keep applying those principles, the lessons that you learned. But you know what? It's not easy. It doesn't get easier. You just have, but as human beings, it may be a tough day or a tough moment, something happened, and bang, you are there thinking those negative things. It's not easy. So
that's right.
It never ends. Going back to Amazon. So, I mean, that's my reason for starting this podcast. 17 years is a huge amount of time to stay in this space where you've been able to exercise that discipline, to apply methodology, put away the emotions, and so it's not easy. And of course, there is something new all the time. It's not like we're not talking crisis. It's something new, market forces, competition. and you find yourself thinking, oh my God, how are we gonna do it? And then Amazon throws something in the mix to make it even.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It's
That's right. It's never a dull moment. And as I look back on it, that Marine training, I did 4 years in the Corps, and it was another lifetime ago. You know, it was I'm much more soft and malleable now than I was back in those early days, but it was really good training for being able to survive on the Amazon platform. And why are we there? Because that's where the shopper is. The shopper
yeah.
is there, right? They figured it out. They beat the pants off of everybody else, and you have to be there. But it's also, you know, I've become more empathetic towards Amazon and their plight, along with the plight of Amazon sellers over the years. And, you know, you just have to constantly be evolving. It's why this company that's $1 trillion valuation company just keeps getting better. They do not rest on their laurels, and they're constantly working and improving. And in order to succeed in anything in this day and age, you have to do that as well. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I'll cuss and swear at Amazon, but then at the end of the day, once I figure it out, I'm like, oh, now I understand why they're pushing this. In most, there's 10% of the cases where I'm like, I hate you, Amazon, don't do this. But most of the time, there's a good reason for it. And after you've gone through the struggle and the process to adapt and to figure out the process. Like I'll give you a good example. At one point, I was a drop shipper. Overnight, they started punishing you if your shipping metrics were not perfect, and I had to stop drop shipping. I had an 8-figure business that was like half of my revenue at some point, and I had to slowly cut that business off. Otherwise, I was going to lose access to the Amazon shopper. But you know what happened? As much as I was swearing and cussing during that process, at the end of the day, I was like, oh, this is a much better experience. I'm actually able to build a brand now because I'm able to deliver. I'm able to tell people when it will arrive, and able to deliver faster. And my overall company got better as a result of that change. And so, you know, and that's what happens when you're training for things like the Marine Corps and the battlefield is, you know, a roadblock is presented and you figure out how to climb it, go around it, or blow it up. Right.
So I'm gonna give you something. I mean, this conversation, we're not having chit chat, by the way. This is for my listeners. We are talking here real serious methodology for mindset, which is what drives everything. It doesn't matter how good you are at numbers, metrics, you know, marketing, listing optimization. You've got the wrong mindset, forget it. So what we are talking about is mindset. So let me share another one with you, Jason. Whatever Amazon does, you not only have to embrace it, but also have some faith. This is what I'm talking about. When I say faith, I'm talking about faith in Amazon doing the right thing eventually, even if it may appear to be the wrong thing, and then set your operation up accordingly. So this is what happened to me. In my days, there was no private label. So I was reseller. And of course, you're playing the buy box. And being an engineer, I built this tremendous machinery that gathered data, applied algorithms, decided how many pieces to sell, at what price to sell, to whom, and then therefore turn around and buy how many pieces from whom. I mean, it was the whole thing was fully automated. Awesome. Those days there were no reprices, no nothing. So I'm doing this whole thing. But even today, what I built doesn't exist because it has to read your inventory and then automate so many calls. And so anyway, one day I discover something. So of course we're reading the buy box, who's in the buy box and what is their price. And therefore we are looking at if we can beat that price and then also still make profit. And if we make profit, then capture it. But we didn't necessarily need to reduce price. We would in fact capture by increasing price also. So this things discovered. But anyway, so what happens is one day I discover that we are not winning the buy box, even though we should. And I study and study and study. And this one seller discovered a loophole. Because what was happening was Amazon would look at the item price and the shipping fee that the seller charged. and then combining the two and looking at the total price and then comparing it to other sellers. And then if it was competitive and the seller had good performance, it would give the buy box. So that was the algorithm. It still is the algorithm. But this seller discovered that the algorithm used the standard shipping fee.
Mm.
And you know what they did? They didn't offer standard shipping. They offered expedited shipping only.
Mm.
And they charged something like $7, $8 for it. So because the standard shipping was not available, what was being displayed was zero shipping. But as soon as you hit buy and you go to checkout, it will automatically add the expedited shipping because standard wasn't available. And of course, they were winning the buy box, even though they were charging, much higher.
Right.
So I discovered this, and this is where the faith comes in. So I reported it to Amazon. I said, look, there is a problem with your algorithm. This is causing, this seller. So I captured the screenshots, everything, and I documented. This is what's going on, and you need to fix it. They came back and said, this is website behavior. We can't do anything. So I said to myself, you know what? We're not going to change our ways. Amazon is going to fix this because this is wrong. And when they fix it, everybody is going to take a hit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up our operation exactly as this seller did.
Yeah, sure.
But at the same time, to compete with them, I'm going to read data that will allow me to compete with him because we were simply not reading the data. So about 6 weeks later, one day, my sales go through the roof. I wake up in the morning and I see orders piled up because Amazon realized and fixed the hole. And in the process, of course, everybody who was playing the buy box game, they just got slaughtered.
Yeah.
And because I was ready and my system was there, it was all. So, having faith in Amazon will do the right thing, it often helps, which kind of goes to the mindset also. So
I couldn't agree more. I do believe that as well. Now more than ever, especially in the last couple of years, they've got a lot of good, hardworking people. They're overworked. They can't get all the work that's on their plate done in a given day because as big as Amazon is, they're probably the most understaffed company on the planet for the amount of business that they do and the amount of work that goes into getting, getting the GMV sales numbers that they do every year, which are just enormous, more than half of online on sales here in the United States. And they do always stumble on typically the right thing. And so I like what you said. I'm totally agreeing with you, Nick. Pay attention to it, learn the algorithm, figure out a way to work it to your advantage, but also be prepared for not if, but when Amazon does the right thing and corrects it.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is something everybody needs. We're talking just before starting the recording, there's challenges all the time and we have to deal with it every day. So the one common characteristic today about selling on Amazon is competition is fierce. The costs are going up and Amazon has now new fees. Advertising is getting more expensive. And of course, we are competing with a lot of the Chinese sellers who have the price advantage, so they drive the prices down. So today's discussion is about how do you compete on Amazon without reducing price and win? How do you do this successfully? So tell us your approach, Jason.
Yeah, well, it's a great topic. Thank you for bringing it up, Nick. Let's circle back on your why a little bit. Why are we talking about this? And it's largely because of those factory sellers. And, it goes beyond China now. There's factories in Vietnam and all over Southeast Asia and other places where the cost of doing business is cheaper. And in the past, they'd worked as contract factories and let somebody else do the final mile selling. But this is one of the things I'm not a big fan of Amazon doing, but I know that there's definitely consumer value here, is they've done a lot of outreach to those factories and helped them figure out how to sell direct. And so if you're a brand in the United States or the EU and you think you can compete on price, you are wrong. You cannot, unless you're a factory and unless you live in, outside of Shanghai or Dongguan or Guangzhou, one of the places in China, you cannot compete on price. So what do you do? What do you do? And in the old days, Nick, we used to make jokes about some of the China listings. And the language, the English didn't make sense, and they would say funny things unknowingly, and you just knew by looking at it that it was a China seller. But I have to tell you, in the last few years, it's getting harder and harder to see because they have leveled up their game, largely because these Chinese sellers are smart. And they think like you did with your example previously in the podcast, where you're talking about, hey, here's a problem. I need to improve my conversion rate. I need to improve my click-through rates. What do I need to do? I need to find contractors or get better at doing the things that help convert sales. Better listing, better photography, better English, better writing, better SEO, and all of those things. And so the competition is not lessening. Like when I first started in 2003, Nick, you could throw up a listing that looked so bad, it made factory spec sheets look good, and you could still do gangbusters in business, right? Fast forward to 2024, and you can no longer do that. It's not possible. You have to have your game. You have to have a listing that's solid, that conveys a premium nature. You have to have all the technical capabilities and understandings of the listing, your SEO, all the attributes have to be filled out, and then you have to drive traffic. Those are the big three, right? And so in order to be able to do this, you have to build a brand. You have to build your brand moat, right? Mm-hmm. Apple phones are a great example, right? They're the most expensive phone out there. They have a very large market share with fewer quantities sold than some of the Android phones, right? Mm-hmm. So the Android phones are lower margin. They're much higher quantity and volume, but Apple's able to manage with similar revenue, right? On a revenue market share. Why? Because they have an amazing brand. They have a love mark. People love their mark. They will pay extra for it, even if it doesn't have the same level of features as some of the Samsung phones do, right? And so building that brand is really important on Amazon. Now, how do you do it if you don't have access to the branding genius of, say, a Steve Jobs, or the very, very deep pockets? Talk about another $1 trillion company. Apple's certainly one of them. How do you do that on Amazon? At a high level, number one, you have to be different, right? And I got this saying, different is better than better. I learned that from my co-author, Rick Cesare, the DRTV legend. Different is better than better. You must differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Number two, and Amazon makes this really, really easy. The days of focus groups are behind us, and you must constantly improve your product and packaging, right? And we'll talk more about that later. And then obviously, you have to pay attention to core metrics. We have 7 avenues over here. One of the avenues is listing. One of the avenues is product. Product is where you find the information, like the ratings, the reviews, the questions that shoppers are asking in the Q&A section before they buy something, and then the reasons for return. You have to process, collect, and study all of that information. Take that back to your product manager or to your factory and figure out ways to change happy to glad so that it's less confusing, or to improve, add 25 cents, 70 cents of quality here to get $5 in value there, right? So that's the product avenue. And then on the listing side, some of those core metrics, we look at click-through rate and conversion rate. If your CTR is not good on your advertising conversion and your conversion rate is not good, then there's a problem with the listing. And if your ratings are good and those CTR and conversion rates are not good, then there's a problem with your listing and you have to fix it. Now, what do you do by this continual process of improvement? Some of the benefits that you start to gain from this is people will buy your brand and tell their friend about it, right? Now you're starting to get a halo effect on your brand. Your brand search volume, people will start searching your brand, right? When you start to realize you get 20, 30% of your clicks are coming from branded keywords, you're winning and you're building a brand. Your ad spend as a percentage of revenue will go down because you're going to own that organic branded search terms and you don't have to pay for all that traffic, right? Your cost of ads are going to go down. Returns will go down if you're paying attention to why people are returning and making changes to it. And then, of course, the customer delight goes up and your margins go up and the value of your company goes up. And it allows you to do something that we talk about over here at Avenue 7. We stole this from some smart folks, but it allows you to price high and justify. You must justify why your prices are higher, continual process improvement, etc. Now, I'm not even talking about the look and feel, right? We're not necessarily branding experts. Over at Avenue 7, we've done that. We've done branding work where we've refreshed a brand or taken a couple a level steps up. But a lot of those basics are where you can begin to build a brand right on Amazon that prepares you for sales beyond Amazon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that's a lot to unpack there, Nick, but it's a flow, right? There's a flow to it.
Well, look, let me distill it down to the few core points that you made. And then I want to dig into these and then expand it, under each heading. First of all, don't compete on price, compete on brand. Compete on the value that your brand offers. So that's the first thing. The second thing is continually improve the product based on customer feedback. And then watch the metrics of the operation. And you mentioned what I call my two magic bullets for success on Amazon is click-through rate and conversion rate. Ultimately, those are the two. So of course, it's not as simple. Click-through rate on the paid campaigns, click-through on the organic, click-through on the total, and conversion on the pay, so on and so forth. But nevertheless, it's those two. So that's what we're going to discuss today.
And Nick, I'd add one more, and that's the content, right? That's the look and feel, the visual, the video, the words, the interaction. Right. How are you telling the story of your brand and what value that it brings? What are the benefits of that product, but also how are you differentiated in your story? And how do you tell that story to do what we talked about earlier, which is to justify the higher margin and the higher price because people are willing to pay for it. Yeah. And just one more thing about that. When we talk to clients, I don't know how many Prime subscribers. I'm guessing it's approaching 300 million. But let's say there's 300 million Prime subscribers buying on Amazon every single day. And let's chop that up into thirds. You got 100 million of those shoppers that are only going to buy the lowest cost price. That's not your customer in today's world. If you live in the United States, Canada, or in EU, that's not your customer. That's China's customer. Let them have it, right? The middle is someone who will buy some lower price, but also some premium price, right? If it's compelling, if the interaction that they're seeing on the detail page and the brand store is compelling and the ratings and reviews are there and people are raving about the product, they'll pay more. And then there's the top third. And this is what I like to refer to as my wife's tertiary, right? My wife will never buy the lowest priced item. She wants it to make her feel something. She wants to be able to see the premium nature of the brand, of the quality, and she will never be the lowest price. And so when you're creating your content on that final, bullet point there that you laid out so nicely, Nick, is you have to speak to her. You have to speak to him, the folks that don't trust the lowest price, the folks that want to feel something and connect with the brand, understand the story, and see, feel, and think in their unconscious, this is a premium product. I want the best. That's the content that you create, and that will allow you to have that higher price, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, totally. This is what brand building is about. So let's now dissect those points. Sure. So as you know, your typical Amazon shopper does a search or they have their personalized content showing up in their account section, or when they log in or whatever, stuff shows up, and then they go click on it. But mostly it's all about the search. So in that search, the results present sponsored listings and organic listings. So how does one differentiate themselves among, even if they're on the first page, which is hard enough, but how do you build a brand that speaks to that person that is your customer?
There's a lot to unpack there, Nick. It's a great question. How do you rise above on the search results page, right? And then obviously, if you don't have any branded search right now, you have got to get clicks, and you have got to get sales, and you've got to wow that shopper after they receive that package at their door on their doorstep, right? And so how do you do that? It's going to cost you. You're going to have to drive clicks and sales to the product. You're going to have to iterate that product and improve it and make it better. You're going to have to improve the packaging. And over time, you'll reach a point where you've driven enough sales and traffic, and you've wowed and made customers happy enough that you start building the brand now, right? Obviously, all those steps are important building blocks to building the brand. And then you're showing up in sort of, let's say it's a non-branded keyword search, and you're on a page with a 75, whatever it is, 75 different listings, 25%, 30% of those are paid, the rest are organic. And so how do you differentiate there? So let's zero in on exactly what the shopper sees. When they do a search, whether it's a non-branded keyword or regular keyword, they see that banner ad, right? First, they see the banner ad. Hopefully you can afford to get some placement on that, because that's really important. It's an opportunity for you to show some custom graphics and some great star-rated products right there in that top row, right? So that's important. Second, you need to be in that top row of sponsored search. By being able to do that and defend that ground, it's going to drive up your organic rank. And so maybe if you're lucky, someday you've got the banner ad on the top of search. Then you've got the first row, you got a couple of product placements there. And then in the third and maybe the fourth row, you've got some organic placement. Now, in the mind of the shopper, this brand is legit. They're legitimate. I don't know why. I'm not even probably thinking about it. All this is going on in the unconscious. But I've seen this brand now 3, 4, 5 times. The shopper will say, this brand must be for real, right? This brand must be for real. Now let's zero in on the listing itself. What can you see from the search results page? Main image. And it's the most restrictive image of all, which is totally frustrating. You can put a product on a white background. Now, some categories are less restrictive than others. You can get away with stuff that's beyond TOS. That main image is absolutely critical. And we fight our clients sometimes to tell them we need better imagery, or let us do a 3D graphic that the system can't tell is a 3D graphic. That image must be the highest resolution possible. It must be the highest DPI possible, and it must pop and shine. And it must take up as much of that white space on that main image as possible. Now, you want to try 4 or 5, 6 different of those variations. You can do it and then run them on PickFu. See which one, do your own unofficial survey. You can run a manage your experience, and you can test out different main images. Find the one that pops the most and that has the highest level of conversion. What else do you see on that listing, that search results listing? Price. Let's talk about price last, because I don't talk about price much when we're talking to our brands. We want to justify whatever that price number is, and we never go back and tell our clients that they need to lower their price, because we're working on the main image, ratings, and it goes back to that laying the foundation, right? We have to constantly be improving the products. Those ratings are going up compared to the competition. If you're lucky, you can see some badges. If you run some deals, right? If you run some coupons or discounting, you can get some badges that make it pop off of that search results page a little bit better. Those are the core items that you must literally laser focus on tweaking and playing with to improve that CTR for your ads. I know that it's not very sexy, Nick, to be able to do that, but that's the work.
Listen, there are several things you said. So I'm gonna just for our listeners and our viewers, I'm gonna just summarize it. Yeah, and then there is one other thing that I want to add, and tell me what you think about that. So the first of all, what you're talking about is be prepared to spend money to get
Yeah.
your initial exposure. There's no way that you're gonna build a brand without spending money. So
Yeah.
nobody knows. So there's one other thing that I want to throw in this mix is if you are a new seller, new brand with a new listing. So everybody think about this and put yourself in that bucket. New seller, you just started selling or you want to start selling. You've got your new brand that you registered that you want to launch with a new listing. You've got the toughest job because you've got nothing to show for. But if you are an existing seller for an existing brand, but a new listing, that's a different situation. So analyze these different scenarios, but no matter what, you have to spend money to drive traffic to that new listing. Of course, if you are new with all three, you're gonna spend more money because nobody knows you. But either way, so what I heard you mention is if you can get that sponsored brand banner and sponsored product listing, so go for both if you can.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate goal is on certain keywords, try to get the organic ranking up there so that all three show close to each other. So that's one.
Yes. That's the
extremely
holy
valuable.
grail. You just named the holy grail, Nick. If you can accomplish that and your star ratings are good and your main images are popping and your product titles are optimized, there's a truncated product title. That's the one piece I forgot to mention on the search results. And maybe you got some banners, you run some tests with different types of deals and coupons, then that's the holy grail. That will get the flywheel spinning for you.
I have a question for my listeners. Are you experiencing cash flow challenges with your Amazon business? Well, silly question. Who is not, right? So let me introduce you to Viably, a unique solution tailored for Amazon sellers and e-commerce enterprises. By connecting your Seller Central or Shopify account, you can promptly access funding along with a variety of financial tools, all for a flat fee. It's as simple as that. And for my listeners, they are offering an extra $1,500 in funding for eligible applications. Start your quick and easy application today at runviably.com/legends. And that's runviably.com/legends. Yeah. So, okay. So you've got the exposure there. Now, there's a few things that you mentioned with badges and blah, blah. So every one of the seller that is a small business, you've got to get the small business badge because that's going to be a badge that is going to help you. People like to buy from small businesses. And there is a specific way to get that badge. You have to get certification. You pay like $25 a year or whatever, but get as many badges. And then also go in Seller Central and search in the help, search for certifications, and then go to that page that lists all the certifications. There is a zillion of them. Minority owned, women owned, this
Climate
owned, that
pledge
owned.
friendly, right?
Get all those badges. So I'm just expanding the heading of badges you mentioned. Get all of them. Another thing is the ratings, of course, without a doubt. You try to get as many ratings, and you've got to be over 4. It's no good to have 3, 4 plus, and that's a given. Another little trick is use clip coupons. Clip coupons show up on the search results page. If you offer a discount with a promotion code, it doesn't show up. But if you offer a clip coupon, which conveniently Amazon charges for, you have to use it because it's going to show up. It's going to say 5% coupon available.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. And with those things, now you have a way that you are going to stand out. And of course, main image is the most important. I'm going to share one little tip. Tell me if you've tested this and what kind of results, if so. Having some kind of human element in the picture.
If you can get away with it, it's very important. Yes.
So, I tell you a trick. So I'm going to give this away to everybody. Do we do this? So if the product is small enough, so what we do is we have a hand, we put the product right in the palm. It's the product that dominates the picture, but you see the hand in the picture. So having that hand, you know what it does? It makes the picture stand out because nobody else has a hand. So
Right.
that's a big deal. Another trick that we I mean, it's not a trick, but it's something that goes with branding is we always have what we call an image theme. So image theme is not a logo. You're not allowed to use logos, but it's a theme. For example, if you're selling supplements, it's a good thing to have in that picture somewhere in the corner, like all the natural ingredients, like you may have pineapple, whatever. So somewhere. So build a theme, and that theme carries throughout the images in some shape or form. So though, again, an image theme stands out, makes the main picture stand out.
Totally agree with that, Nick. If I could just pile onto that real quick, sometimes they'll allow packaging if it's beautiful, and you can have that theme in your packaging on your main image, and then the additional images, we call them infographics. You want those additional images to look like a high gloss magazine ad. You want it to have your branding. You want it to call out the benefits and the features of the product, and then also to be able to tell your story. Sometimes you don't have to use words to tell your story. If you do a good job with those additional images as people are thumbing through on their mobile device, your conversions will go through the roof.
Yeah. So, okay. So those are the things. Now, the thing that I want to add to this is kind of like what I always say about negotiation. I say 50% of a good negotiation is won or lost before even parties come together. What I'm talking about is, in terms of negotiation, it's the mindset. So if you like establish that strong mindset, and then they are like, fearful, and they, they're gonna walk away with something. Then already it's already done. So just like that. So what I'm talking about is, before even the search is conducted by the shopper, you must already place yourself in a winning position. What I'm talking about is the intended searches. Which ones are you going to be part of? And that goes straight back to the customer avatar. Who do you want to appear next to? If you don't have a strategy with your targeting, who are you going after? Therefore, what are the keywords associated with? I'll give you an example. I have a client, they sell diffuser oils. So stuff that it makes the place smell nice. But their price is $40 per 1 ounce bottle. Tiny little bottle, $40. You can find other diffuser oils for $10, $12. Needless to say, a lot of Chinese. So how do they do it? So good luck competing on the keyword diffuser oil.
Right.
But what they have is they have 4 different scents, and one of them is for gyms, yoga, and things like that. So suddenly targeting, and also, by the way, who does yoga, right? So not necessarily someone who's going to compete on price, right?
That's
Exactly.
right. That's right.
So when you position yourself under anything to do with yoga, and this comes up, that's what I'm talking about. Before even the search is conducted, you have placed yourself in a winning position. And then with everything that you mentioned, where your image and everything else that shows up, then they are more likely to click on it. Then the rest of the story is told on the product detail page. And
Yes.
then that's where you're gonna have all the yoga related stuff and blah blah blah. So that's what I was talking about. So what is
Yeah.
your take on what I said?
Well, I absolutely love it. And I want to highlight one of the things that you said is it's really important to know who your customer is. You may not know who that is if you're brand new and you're launching, but it's another reason why I love Amazon. If you have your registered trademark and your brand registry that you can get via the IP accelerator at the time you file your trademark, which I highly recommend, then you can get brand registry data in the brand analytics dashboard. And it's remarkable. You can see what age your folks are, what the education background is. You could see male or female. And I'll give you a good story, Nick. When I, in my previous life as a seller, we thought we were the man cave company. We sold cool, fun stuff like billiard tables, air hockey, ping pong, all of that stuff, right? We thought we were selling because we were young men in our 20s. And, we had these cool game rooms in our house and we thought that's who we were selling to. And then this was long before brand registry had brand analytics and seller central. So we took we did a download. We weren't supposed to do that, but we did it anyway. We did a download of all of the customers that were in our database from the last year. And then we ran it through one of the credit card companies and we asked them to reverse engineer what our customer looked like. And it was fascinating. It totally blew our minds. We weren't the man cave company. The data told us that we were selling to moms who were living in big homes in the suburbs. And we were like, oh, of course, that's who's buying from us. It's women. It was almost 60-40 women to men. And so what did we do with that information? We changed we went out and worked with a branding company. We changed the entire logo look and feel of our company from a more masculine brand look to a more gender neutral, something that would be welcome to both women and men. And we went out in our product designs and development. I started as a reseller as well, ultimately developing my own brand over time. And we created designs that were very unique and jumped off of that search results page because they were different. And they were more gender neutral. They were brighter colors. We had some oranges and blues. In fact, that's why my Avenue 7 logo is blue and orange, because one of my best-selling products was an air hockey table. And it had these very bright orange and blue colors compared to the competition, who were old professional billiard players. And everything was black and red and boring and very, very masculine, right? Ours jumped off of that screen because it was different. And more importantly, to your point, Nick, it spoke exactly to our customer demographic, which the majority of which were moms with kids in the burbs that had an extra room to fill in arcade games and billiard tables and ping pong tables with.
Well, I mean, look, women spend the most money, right? So we know
That's
that.
right.
So I mean, I tell you a similar one. We were selling fragrances, and you have women's fragrances, men's fragrances. Well, who buys men's fragrances? Guess what? 60% of the men's fragrances were bought by women.
That's right. That's right.
Because they bought it for their boyfriend, spouse, or whatever, and they bought it for themselves because they liked it more than the women's.
Yep.
So the women have the power to spend, and that's the reality. So you just have to figure out. Okay,
Yeah.
so now we are on the product detail page, and let's talk a little bit about how to build your A+ content to tell your brand story. What are some effective ways that you can share with us?
Well, I think that the first thing is to figure out what your story is and be authentic, right? Like for my brand back in the day, the Harville brand, it was about bringing friends and family together. Other companies were selling on the airflow and the number of volts on the table and the dimensions and the size. They were focused on features. But when we sat down with our branding company and we said, here's our moms, what do moms want to do? They want friends and family to be together. They want to build a spot or a place where memories can be built, right? And so that was our story. That's how my brothers and I started the company in the first place. we had the Shabbos every Friday. When the sun went down every Friday until the sun went down Saturday, we unplugged. And every week we spent time together playing board games and ping pong and basketball in the driveway and everything. And that was our authentic, real story. That's why we started the company. It wasn't necessarily just to make money. Of course, we wanted to earn a living. It was to sell products that shared the same experience that we grew up together with, right? And so that was our authentic story, and we doubled down on that. And we told that story in the brand story section. We infused that story into the A+ details. I'm not a graphic designer and I'm not an artist, although I've designed a ton of stuff. I'm really explaining to the folks with the technical background how to convey and communicate something that makes me feel something. People won't remember what you say. They'll remember how they make you feel, right? And if you make them feel anything, right, at the time of point of purchase, where that details page, that's what will stick in their mind. It goes past the frontal lobe, right into the feeling centers of the brain, and it sticks. And so that's what you have to convey, both in your main image. Well, the main image is the most restrictive, of course, but in those infographics, that's part of the A+ as far as I'm concerned. Then you got brand story, then you got A+ detail. It's all uniform. It's that theme that you were talking about, Nick, like you so wisely pointed out. And then you want that theme to carry over into your brand store. And then when they're like, I wonder if these guys have a .com, and they go to their .com, they see the same theme and brand and they feel the same thing. That is what matters. If you're a brand, if you go and you look at it, ask your friends and families, ask them what they feel when they see it. What are the thoughts and feelings that go through their mind? If they don't say anything, go back to the drawing board. You got to work on it.
Absolutely. I mean, one immediate takeaway from this is whatever is in your A+ as a theme and on your brand story, it has to be consistent across your website and your Amazon page. So that's nobody actually mentioned it before. I mean, I've done 250 episodes. Nobody mentioned this. So there's always something new, because a lot of people working on this, different ideas, and this is a great one. And if you think about it, it's not a difficult one to implement either. So it's just about consistency. And one other thing, I'm sure it's something that you do all the time, is video, right? You must have.
Yes.
So tell us about the best kind of videos to include in your product detail page.
Well, I'll tell you a great story. My co-author from the Amazon jungle, Rick Cesari, he's the master of video, right? He did the George Foreman grill, he did the GoPro camera videos and direct TV advertising, and built many billion-dollar brands. What? With video. Key elements are testimonials, but really more importantly is, I remember the first time I shared one of my videos on my Amazon page with my friend Rick Cesari. And you know what the video was, Nick? It was an installation video. And Rick, being very kind and not wanting to upset me, I said, hey, here, we got videos. Look at this video. It was somebody putting together a ping pong table. And Rick looks at it, then looks at me and goes, boy, that looks like work. And I was like, oh, right. So we went back to the drawing board. I said, Rick, help me figure out the right video here. And he goes, well, let's go back to your message. What is it? Bring friends and family together. One of our taglines was instructions play. So we set up an Airbnb video shoot. We rented a video and we brought in 7 or 8 products and we kept swapping them out. We set up the studio and we had models that was a family, a young couple with kids playing ping pong. That was the video. Now, the assembly video, we started sending via email after the purchase, right? After the add to cart. But the video was not even showing the features of the table. It was showing a very happy, aspirational family, loving each other, coming together and playing on this tool to come together, right?
Yeah.
That's the element of a video. You start there, everything else is easy, Nick.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add a couple of things to this. First of all, you must have video. There is no question, not because of what the video is going to do for you only. It's the video is going to do things anyway, in terms of perception, building your brand and blah, blah. But what uploading one video does is it qualifies you and opens up the door for Amazon influencers to start adding their video to your listing. So
That's right.
this is something new under Amazon Creator Connections. So every Amazon associate now has this program. If they want, they can join the Amazon Creator Connections program. And what they are doing is they are searching for products that convert well. And then what they do is they record a video and upload it to your page. So here is what happens. When they upload it to the page, let's say that I come along, I'm looking for stuff, and I've got 3-4 items in my cart already, and then I come across this listing that has that same Creator Connections video on it, and I watch it and I say, oh, that looks nice, and then I make a purchase. Guess what? That Amazon associate gets a piece of the action on the entire cart because they had their video. So what opens this gate is you uploading one single video to your listing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you know what Rick would call that? Rick would call that a testimonial.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and this is what Rick would do. He would go out with the big brand. Hey, George Foreman, I want to interview 20 or 30 of your shoppers who paid with their cash or credit to buy this product and interacted with it. I want to sit them down in a lobby in front of a camera. And I want to ask them 7 or 8 questions. And ultimately, they use those reels for testimonial reels because everyone wants to know that somebody else had a good experience with the product, right? It's a barrier to overcome. It helps them overcome their anxiety when it comes to purchase, right? And so the other interesting thing about those interviews, and we did this with our shoppers in our previous life, we would ask them, what did they like? How are you using the product? Where is it? You know, tell me your best memory with the client, with interacting with the product. Those shoppers will sometimes tell you what your messaging is. And so Rick would take those interviews, he would take out the little snippets, he would collect the themes that everyone had the same thing to say about it and find a way to infuse that into the branding, into the messaging. That is magic and it's powerful and it works. And the influencers in my mind are like today's version of testimonials.
Yeah, I mean, they are. I mean, there are also, you know what they are doing? They are producing content, and this content is extremely valuable that you can leverage over and over. But video is the one that does it. And also, as far as installation, so you're right. So I've got a client, they do floor kits, and they have a whole unboxing video. They sell a kit, and this kit comes in a box that as big as a chair. So there's a lot in it and it's complex operation. So I said, you've got to have an unboxing video. So they did that, but that's not the first video. So your promotional video is not a video that you take with your iPhone. It's a video that needs to follow a script and it has to touch people's feelings. It has to be produced almost like producing a movie. It has to have a theme. What is it that you want people to feel when they finish watching the video? The music you use in it is key, and the subtitles, everything. You're telling the story of how your product is going to impact the shopper, and they have to see themselves in the video.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And those people better be smiling and happy and enjoying this because it goes right in. It goes right into the brain.
Yeah.
And it just sort of gets past that anxiety barrier, as I mentioned. There's one other thing you mentioned, packaging, and I want to circle back to that for a second. Someone at QVC, a buyer from QVC, told me this a long time ago. You sell your product twice at QVC, and the same is with Amazon. You sell it at the moment they add the credit card to the cart, and they add and they buy now, and then you sell it again when that thing arrives at the doorstep. Yeah, most of these things come in an Amazon box. But when you open it up and you see the packaging, it better not be junk. Think about when I don't know if you're an Apple, I don't know if you like Apple products, but if you look at the packaging on Apple. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to that extreme. You have to be priced pretty high. in order to be able to afford packaging that's cool and that's designed.
Yeah.
But that packaging and that open box experience at the moment the shopper gets it out of the Amazon box and starts to open it is very important. You cannot spend too much time there. And the last thing that I'll say about it, you can't spend too much time with your product development team and your engineering team making it possible to assemble your product without instructions. The closer you can get to allowing them to put this thing together, if it comes KD without detailed, heavy instructions, the better off your experience is, the more you'll build your brand and the more brand searches that will drive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's these days. No, I mean, nobody. You have to have a manual if it's complex, but nobody reads the manual anyway. So
No,
it's
I'm a guy. I never read the manual until it's too late, right? I don't want that. I want to be able to. I want to intuitively be able to figure out how to assemble this thing.
Yeah. So as far as the storytelling and the brand building, everything we talked about is how you avoid competing on price, because you make your packaging spectacular, impressive, so that when they receive it, they respect the product, they respect the company, and they respect the effort that's gone into producing that. And also, when you have something like that, put the pictures of it on the product detail page. In other words, we are living in a virtual world, but we want to have that experience as close to reality as possible. So
That's right.
therefore, leave nothing undisclosed in terms of what they're going to receive when they receive it. Show the box, show the packaging, show the labels, take close-up picture of the label, show what's going to be on the label, so they can almost touch the product by looking at the pictures and say, this is what I'm going to get. And then when they get it, I never forget, I went on many years ago, I went on a date. Okay, so this is when those apps were becoming popular, and I went on a date, and I met this lady, and I sat down and we are gonna have coffee, and she took one look at me, and you know what she said? She said, "You look exactly like your pictures."
That's a good thing. You don't want to look worse than your picture, right? You want to look accurate.
Well, I mean, these days, and then I tell you another one. Around the same time, I went on another date with this another woman, and she said to me, you would never believe it. She said, I met this guy, and I'm looking for him. You know, of course, they're meeting for the first time. And she says to me, he finally showed up, tapped on my shoulder. The guy presented himself as 45 years old, whatever, and he was like 80 something, looked nothing like the picture. I mean, how can you expect?
That's right. That's right.
So the product has to be like that. You can't show these fancy pictures, touched up pictures, and then ship something that's useless. And keep in mind, you're going to send your product to the FBA location.
Yeah.
They're going to handle it in the warehouse. Even though it's robots, there is still human handling, at least when they receive it. It's going to get dirty. It's going to get marked. So put them in a bag or something like that. So those things, so that when they finally receive, when the customer receives that product, it does look exactly like the picture you put on the product detail page. That's going to make a big difference, right?
That's right, Nick. And, you know, as the brands and your listeners execute on some of the things that we're talking about, I know you're big on the metrics. You know, the metric I like the most is sales growth. The second one is margin growth. It doesn't have to be percentage necessarily, as margin dollars, right? Those will rise and grow as you build brand. Your click-through rate and your conversion rate will grow. Your organic sales compared to your ad sales will grow. Your ad spend will go down as a percentage of revenue. People will start talking about your brand, and people will start sharing with their friends about your brand, and your brand search volume will go up, not just on Amazon, it'll also go up on Google. And that's when you know you've got something. That's when you know you're starting to hit the right chord for the shopper that's out there. And that's when you know you've got something of real value. that you can grow and ultimately at some point sell for life-changing money.
Exactly. Life-changing money is exactly it. And that's the goal. Well, great conversation. And we can go on, you know how it is
Nick,
forever.
us old guys, we could talk for hours, but I gotta go. I gotta go
Listen,
talk to clients.
don't get us started with all the stories from the past. There is I mentioned a few times, my listeners, most of them know that I do scuba diving. So you get a few divers, talking about the so Amazon is no different.
It's no different. It's
No
no
different.
different.
There's all kinds of stories. So let's spend the next few minutes to get to know you a little bit. So tell us who Jason Boyce is. Tell us, where did you grow up? And obviously you're an entrepreneur. What I want to always unpack about my guests is their early life experiences. When
Mm.
did you know that you were, I mean, at the time you wouldn't have known, but looking back, when was the first time that you did something as a kid or whatever that said, oh, that was the entrepreneur at the beginning?
That's an easy one, Nick. I lived in the Pacific Northwest for about 6 years of my childhood in a small town called Tillamook, Oregon. And Tillamook is where the Tillamook cheese, if you know that, or the pepperoni and jerky smokehouse products come from. And it's a big dairy community. It's also in a rainforest, essentially. It's in the coastal mountain range. And my backyard was basically a giant mountain range, and it was amazing. And so when I would play, I would go and run through the woods. One day, a neighbor friend of ours, I learned he'd figured out how to go and pull moss off of trees, put it in gunny sacks and sell it. And he was getting $35 to $60 per gunny sack of moss pulled from trees. That was my very first entrepreneurial venture. So I would come back after school or after sports, and then on the weekends, and I'd go run through the mountains, and I would take my gunny sacks and I'd fill two of them. I got strong enough where I could fill them up two and carry them back down the mountain. I'd dry them out, and then I'd have my mom or dad take me down to the vendor who was buying this stuff and then reselling it to the nurseries in California. And I made thousands and thousands of dollars doing this.
How old were you then?
I think fourth grade, maybe fourth grade, was when I first started. Fourth or fifth grade is when I started doing that. And so that was my first entrepreneurial venture.
So why did you do it though? What was the attraction?
The money, the cash.
Money.
Yeah, I was able to go buy my Air Jordans, and I was able to buy all the cool stuff that I wanted, because my parents were working class and we didn't always have money. And so I like to be able to work and make extra money. It took a burden off my parents, and I realized that with enough creativity, you can make money without a day job.
So how did your parents take that tendency to want money and then go make money and
They
things like
encouraged
that?
it. They absolutely encouraged it. They were great about it. They did a good job of telling me money isn't the only thing. And, there's more to being a productive, useful human being than just making money. But they also said, making money makes life a little easier.
So, I asked this question to all my guests, and I had to say, most of them, if not all, say, oh, my parents encouraged. I did not have that luxury. My parents were doctors. The first time ever I mentioned making money, they said, do not even think about it, because until you graduate from college, two things were not allowed. One is make money.
Oh, interesting.
Two is play cards. Because they were afraid that if I made money, I would find easy life and stop my studies.
I understand. Yeah.
And quit, education. And if I played cards, I would end up hanging out with not so good kids and learn all the stuff. In fact, I wasn't even allowed to read comic books, because my mother thought it was full of curse words. And as a kid, and of course, now fast forward to these days, these were the wrong things to do. It's and look what happened to me. I ended up becoming an entrepreneur. So it doesn't stop, but it denies a lot of the experiences and then a lot of the development, of course. So that's great. So as a fourth grader, you were already making thousands of dollars, and it must have made your parents proud.
It did. It did. I mean, I didn't manage my money very well back then, but it was good to have it.
Yeah, I mean,
there was plenty of moss in the forest for me to make more money back in those days.
That's cool. That's great, Jason. So tell us, how can people reach you, share your contact information?
Sure, you can reach out to me directly via my email, which is just jason@avenue7media.com. I'm on Twitter. I don't do as much posting as I used to because the business is keeping me busy beyond my my normal time limits these days. But I'm also available on LinkedIn. It's Jason R. Boyce. My middle initial R is in Robert.
We're gonna put your contact information with the episodes.
Thank you. I'll get you the Twitter handle. I just drew a blank, and then of course my company is avenue7media.com. You know, we're passionate about sellers and vendors and helping them grow. Our mission at Avenue 7 Media is to change sellers and brand owners' lives. We've had some really good success stories. In fact, I'll tell you just real quickly, Nick, my favorite success story is Mark Robinson. He started some of the first dog wheelchairs. We started working with him early on. I know you're a scuba diver, so you'll love this. Mark called me from a beach in Thailand one day after we'd been working together for 3.5, 4 years and said, Jason, guess where I am? He goes, I'm in Thailand. I don't know if I'm going to go scuba diving or do beach yoga today. I don't have a return ticket. I just sold my company and I'm calling to thank you because it wouldn't have happened without you and the team at Avenue 7 Media. And so now Mark has a scuba diving company on the island of Phuket because he lived his dream. And it was the first example of us meeting the mission at Avenue 7 Media. That's what gets me up in the morning, Nick, is stories like that from Mark Robinson.
Well, I mean, that's great. And for anybody listening, well, you just heard it. You want to retire in Thailand to run your scuba operation by becoming an Amazon seller? This is the place to go. Go contact Jason and he'll take care of it. Thank you, Jason. Great conversation. And a lot of wealth of knowledge. And thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate the work that you do on the podcast.
Before I go, a quick reminder to say goodbye to your cash flow problems and claim your extra $1,500 when you qualify for $25,000 or more in funding. Go to www.runviably.com/legends and start your application today. Thank you. And this brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the episode, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too.